like I was just called on when I wasn't paying attention in class.
Well, that's a correct feeling.
That's a correct feeling. That's
I mean,
That's what happened,
that
Monica.
is what happened.
okay. Francine, do you have anything to say about what Steve just said? Well, I don't want to recap, and I don't want to make people uncomfortable. Monica, for your benefit and for Steve's benefit, well, for everyone's benefit, the way this room is going to work is very different than other clubhouse rooms work. This is a meritocracy, and I have no problem with the idea of a meritocracy. And what that means is that I invite people to the stage because I think their points of view, I'm not saying I always agree with them, but they can make a clear statement and they think in a way that is not purely emotional. They have some logic to them. If anybody is on the stage and wants to go back to the audience, you can raise your hand and we will invite you back. And I don't ever want someone to feel that they are called on out of turn. So this is not I want people to come back here and I want to have intelligent conversations. And I think we are still really trying to learn how to make the best use of Clubhouse, which is not TV, it's not talk radio, it's a whole new animal. And I want to invent a culture that will facilitate healthy, provocative dialogue.
Alec, we welcome too. A word of welcome to the great Steve Appel and the great John Kitover. These are two friends from Clubhouse who are major players on the app, major content creators and real celebrities in their own right on this app.
Oh, wonderful. I am thrilled that they're here. Thank you for mentioning it, Scott. Do either of you want to contribute anything?
Yeah, I'd like to say that, you can use Grok to do financial projections. So a financial projection like if we were to cut the deficit by 25% and keep it fixed at cutting it at 25%, what's the national debt in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? So based off of historical data, we can figure out where we'll be at in the future. So a lot of these conversations, like if we remove $2 trillion from Medicare, Medicaid, or $1 trillion from Medicare, Medicaid, it's like, do people on this app even do any financial calculations and discuss anything that they actually create or explore? And so is this app just not constant political propaganda as opposed to anybody doing any kind of actual, data creation and data analysis?
You said you can use Grok? What is Grok?
Grok, Grok, or any other AI software to do financial, estimations and calculation.
Okay. My goal is to create an environment where we can support each other with we all have different skills and different abilities. And I think your point is very well taken, and I want to take a lot of emotion out of it and create some logic. I'm not sure how to add that to this particular conversation, but we're going to move this room to Tuesday nights, and I would love to invite you to educate us a little bit on that. I think the problem is the deficit is a fairly simple thing to talk about, right? As a piece of the budget. What's not so easy to talk about is cuts in Medicaid or cuts in Medicare. And I think we're irrational about that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would love to remove the emotional factor in all Clubhouse rooms because it's better for everybody, better for the speakers, better for the listeners.
Well, we're on the same team. It's easier said than done. But when you first made your point, it felt to me like it was way out of left field, but now I don't think that at all. I think it's actually relevant. We just need to put it in the right slot. And the right slot for that is maybe to, for example, one of the things that I think would be wonderful, that would be an easy thing for us to do politically, is to say, beyond age 80, you don't get certain kinds of medical treatment under Medicare Advantage. That would be an easy thing for us to do. Why should you do a colonoscopy on somebody who's 80 years old? No mean to upset you, Francine, if you disagree with me.
Oh, I have no disagreement. Let me explain to you how much I hate Medicare Advantage, because it privatized the insurance market and caused people to do things, and I don't know if colonoscopy screenings is one of them, but in regular medicine run by normal people, they don't screen for things where you wouldn't take treatment if you found a positive result, or if you did, the opportunity for, living through the treatment is minimal. And we do a lot of that, not only in Medicare, but we do it in Medicaid. And there's a real problem with our healthcare system. There's a lot of waste and fraud in Medicare, and it's not where people think it is. It isn't with the patients, and it isn't even with the providers as much as it is with the payers, the Medicare Advantage people who give things to Medicare patients that they can get paid for and they can upcode for. And that's where there's a lot of waste and fraud and a whole bunch of other stuff. But it's so complicated, the healthcare thing. I mean, I've been studying it, and I still
Francine,
don't
this
know.
is a really wonderful point. I think what you said is you personally are not on Medicare Advantage and you don't like it. Is that the first thing you said?
Total waste of money, right? Yes.
Okay. The second thing you said is you actually agree with me that colonoscopies for people over 85 might be a waste of money. Did you say that?
And hugely dangerous to the people getting them.
And okay, that's fine. But the objective here, as I see it, and I really am reluctant to get into this when we've only got 5 minutes left in the room, but I think I have a completely opposite opinion from you of Medicare Advantage, but for a very different reason. I think it gives people the autonomy that Justin was talking about, and I think it could potentially be a great dividing line for people to make end-of-life decisions. Nobody dies dead even. I used to be a financial advisor, and that was one of the things we would say in our presentation. Nobody dies dead even, and this is a huge societal problem. I almost don't want to add this to our list today, but someday we should have I would love to have a room with you to discuss that particular subject, but not in one of these Tuesday rooms, because it's a philosophical point, and you're making a wonderful argument against privatization, and I have no problem with that. I agree with that. But I think the other side of it, just like in Obamacare, where you had 3 levels of care you could choose, people decided how much they were willing to pay towards their own medical care. So that piece does provide some autonomy. So, we need to break this into smaller pieces.
Oh, that's very interesting. That's a very interesting take on it. I have just looked at the privatization aspect of it, and how the insurance companies have ripped off the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services.
Yeah. Well, as a former insurance agent, I really was quite highly steeped in Medicare, and the more I studied Advantage, the more I was impressed by the freedom of choice it allowed. But your point is still legitimate, and
whatever it is you are doing. 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Saturday is Ask Uncle Steve, and same time on Sunday is Ask the Atheist. Both the shows are run exactly the same way. Unlike most clubhouse rooms, we love for the new speakers to come on stage. We put a premium for the new speakers. Everybody gets a fresh five to talk about whatever they want. Everything's on the table, and nothing is off limits. Thanks for the shameless plug.
You're welcome. I love what Uncle Steve does because it is organized. It is not a free-for-all. He and I have had a couple of exchanges in his program, and I have found them incredibly helpful.
Oh, do me a favor. Just refresh my memory because I'm not. It's not going into the RAM. What did we last talk about?
We last talked about how you handle your moderators that you have.
I remember. Now I remember you. It's nice to talk to you again. How are you, Al?
I'm good. And the other thing we talked about was a meritocracy for the stage as opposed to what other people do. And you've seen that experiment here. And I like the way it's going, and I'm going to continue to do it. I think rather than focused on time, and this is not a criticism of what anyone else does in Clubhouse, but rather than focused on time, I'm very focused on subject matter and content. So I'm very into an iterative dialogue. And Steve, I think you do a great job of an iterative dialogue with individuals. I'm trying to learn to do it with a group. And it's a challenge, but it's a challenge that I'm enjoying. So thank you.
Anything I can do to help and keep up the good work. Much success.
Thank you much. Okay, guys, we will be back on Tuesday afternoon in Pacific time and evening in Eastern. It'll be 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern. I think what I will do is write down for Yasi these 10 things and see if we can get them into a thing that is manageable and not throwing one out. And then I think, Dr. Freesing, some other day, and it could be in your room or my room, I don't care. I'd love to have this Medicare discussion, but it's too small a topic for what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Sure, of course it's fair.
Okay, very good. Thank you, everyone. Wonderful room. Yasi, you can close the room.
And one thing, I just wanted to say, like, I put Scott's podcast link, I pinned it on top and also in the chat. It's a really good podcast. I really recommend it, and I really recommend everyone to subscribe to it.
Oh, that's right. And the other thing is, if you're not a member of this house, good. And if you're not a member of this house, please join the house.
Of course.
And yes, you can close the room. Thank you.
Can I say one other thing?
Sure, Andrew.
And it's just in regards to consumer protection, correct? I think you might want to include and regulation.
Yes. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, this is the only man. This is the only man to ever troll Chuck Norris. Is that what you're saying, Hillary?
Have you seen Chuck Norris lately?
Yeah.
Exactly.
They
No,
love
I've only
man.
made
It's
comments.
not. They don't care how they look. I think JB's onto something.
You know what, Tim? You're probably right. You're probably right there. Now you were gonna jump in?
Well, I agreed with Steve, but then when Tip made his point, I started thinking about it, and I'm like, that's a good point too. You know, there are a lot of men in prisons across the country. They're not hotties, average-looking guys. Some of them fugglies, but they get money on the books by women who want that inmate pit pal, that inmate love interest. You have women out there who won't even date men on the outside. They only go for the guys in prison. There's a whole series about it. It's called Love After Lockup, Life After Lockup. And then of course, I have to go all the way back to the 80s to think about Ted Bundy. Remember, women thought Ted Bundy was the hottest of the hots. And Ted Bundy used his charisma and charm to infiltrate the investigation and help the police solve his murders before they figured out, wait a minute, the killer we're looking for is on the investigation team voluntarily, right? So, yeah, JB, to answer the question of the room, why are Americans fascinated with crime and criminals? I think part of it is that whole criminals are oftentimes viewed as heroes because they're the opposite of law and order. Some folks might think, they're sticking it to the man. They got one over on the man, even though they're locked up. They dare to be different by going against the grain and fighting the law, even though in many cases they lose. But a lot of women find that, or people, but women in particular, find that thrilling, exotic, and exciting.
I'll tell you what, I think Steve is right. I think Tip is right. Because two things can be right at the same time. But I think a lot of these, not just women, men as well, who are interested in crime and criminals and follow all this stuff, it's the message, right? Luigi had a message. And I think there's a certain segment of America, especially young dummies, that resonate with that message of, anti-establishment. Fuck that guy that he was a CEO of a health company. He had kids. He was married. People didn't give a shit about that. They cared about that he was the CEO of a health company. So, guys, if you're on stage ping people in, I'm going to start pinging people in. Let's have this great conversation. I'm curious what people think. I'll be honest with you. Since I got home, right, from being incarcerated 11 years ago, I've always been transparent about my past in real life on this app. It didn't matter to me. Because if you're going to judge me, then you're showing me I don't need you in my circle. But I have to be honest with you. I almost said bro. I got to be honest with you, Nye. I've got more women interested in me because of my past than because of who I am. Like, they're just so interested in that shit. It's just like, at first it was cool, playing the tough guy and all the ex-con. After a while, it's like, this is bullshit. But I'm going to be pinging people. You guys just have the debates. Why are Americans fascinated with crime and criminals?
Well, JB, go ahead.
Hold on, let me just say this real quick. And it's going to be a polarizing statement this night. But we do have a convicted felon as president. He still has those felonies. And people love that mofo like crazy. Look at Tip and then not.
Yeah, I think this is a dope fucking question that you asked in this room. When I had my little time in the street or on the other side of the law, I had a lot of women. And most women that I got close to, I think they feel unseen. They feel out on the fringes of society. And that's the connection that I have with them. Like, they're impressed with me being so emboldened and so audacious or whatever. They like the fact that I have the balls to come out and speak for the unspoken. I think a lot of people don't feel represented or recognized. A lot of women might feel like that. I'm not sure why people will go with some of these sick people. Some of these motherfuckers in jail need to be in jail, right? Like the psycho killers or whatever, right? But they get a lot of love. But I think a lot of people are not spoken for
and a lot of women specifically, not the unspoken for, they attach themselves to men that have the audacity to get out there and kick ass and just say and scream, what I mean? I'm saying, I'm bugging out a little bit.
Yeah, I want to respond to that very quickly, and then KTP is new. So, Tip, I agree with everything that you just said. A lot of people think that way. A lot of people admire people who have the balls, and they use Mangione as an example. However, this is my take on Mangione. And again, once again, I think a lot of people agree. Pardon me. I think you're right. A lot of people think that. My take is the guy is a fucking coward. In my opinion, it's cowardly to grab a gun, kneel behind a trash can, stake out the person you're looking for, wait till they pass you by, and then shoot them in the back 3 times. I completely agree with you. A lot of people think that's balls. I think that is the worst form of cowardice.
Did you ever read that book though? Defend, whatever whatever that is. You ever read that book, Steve?
Nope, never even heard of it.
Right, so you got to get a little bit more academic. I think it was less than ballsy. I think it was cowardly what he did. I agree with you with that. But he still represents a demographic in this country that feels not recognized. There was something behind that.
You're 100% correct. Absolutely.
All right. So we agreeing and disagreeing at the same time. Okay.
No. I'm agreeing with you that there is a segment of society, you are absolutely right, that thinks what he did took a lot of balls, courageous, and he represents them.
No, not
I'm just going to say, I am with the other segment of society that think he's a total coward.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Now you wanted to jump in, and then we'll go to KTP and Brent.
Stage. I just want to go more in depth. Why are Americans faster than crime and criminals? Shit, the only thing I can kind of think of is hilltop crime. You actually really want to think about it, Started by gang.
Well, I was going to wait, KTP, I don't know,
No, man, KTP, thank you for your issue.
I didn't mean to interrupt him. I thought he was done. I didn't want to interrupt.
You're fine. Yes, he likes
Okay.
that.
Well, we kind of got a little past it. I was going to comment on what you were saying, JB, about, I think you said something about when women find out about your past, it's made them a little bit more interested, or I'm not sure. Something like that you said. And it made me think about how I think folks, men and women, when we find out these things about people, we're fascinated with it. I'm not by no means calling you a criminal, by no means, JB. But I think we're fascinated with the criminal mindset, right? We're fascinated with what makes a criminal choose that life, or take that road, or go down that path. What's their redemption story? Why did they decide to, if they choose to kind of bounce back from that lifestyle and turn it around, what was the motivating factor? Now, I'm only going to admit this right now because you kind of brought it up. Otherwise, I never would have brought this up. And I hope what I'm about to say doesn't bring smoke between us, but I mean this respectfully. When I first started coming in this space consistently, and folks on the back end were mad that I, a black woman, was sitting on this stage with you. I had a few people reach into my back end. I didn't know anything about your past, let me be honest with you. And I was set up on the stage and hear you say that you were, you had been in prison, but it was still none of my business. I never would have asked you. But I had a few people in my back end reach out to me and kind of fill in the details. And I tell you, and I guess they were doing that to kind of convince me that this is not the space, this is not the type of person you want to sit around. But I don't know, there was something about learning this information where I was like, it made you that much more interesting to me, JP. I was like, this is very, very interesting to me. I find him that more fascinating.
thing is, what people weren't taking the time to do was to take the time to learn. What I mean by that is, one of the main people that were chasing me, who was in charge of one of the bigger houses on this app, was an ex-con who got caught selling heroin to children. Now, I never brought that up in my defense because it wasn't for me to defame anybody. He could defame me. That was on him. The two wrongs don't make a right. And also the fact that he's probably made a couple $1 million scamming people on this app. The people don't want to hear that. They want to get the lowest hanging fruit. And the truth is, I'm okay with that. See, my rise, my fall, and my rise again on this app is because of the man I am today. Most people couldn't go through what I went through and still have the courage and the balls to open rooms and talk about their past.
That's true.
Hold on, Dad. I got you. I got everybody. Everybody's going to speak. But my thing is not, people like to read articles that, you know, it's funny, especially Republicans, they'll say fake news, fake news. But when you tell them it applies to me personally, the articles that people are reading aren't accurate. Never went to prison for a sex crime, right? I'm not on any sex offender registry. But they'll grab that shit. They're like, oh, he was doing this, he was mad against me, and I'll tell you what I was doing. But they rather just go with sensationalized bullshit. And let's not center around me, because this is really about, it fascinates me, because people do want to talk to me about the criminal in the world. You know, what I went to prison for wasn't the only crime I was doing. When you're a criminal, you're grabbing money with both hands, you don't give a fuck where it's coming from. But I was the type of criminal that wasn't the drugs, guns, or violence. It's more of a cerebral criminal. You know, if they would have busted me for the credit card fraud, the bank fraud, any other type of fraud that I was doing, I would have probably did 900 years. But, you know, listen, by the grace of God, I'm here today. I'm a better man. I learned my lesson. And the people I find that point fingers at me are the ones that don't want to look in the mirror themselves. But anyway, let me look. Brenton stays. I'm going to go wrong.
Wait, that was dope. That was dope. You should have said that, JP. Let that rest. That was fucking real, bro.
I agree with it because I also knew they were fraud account for like a children's hospital and took fake donations. Like that was in my past. I just come back. I don't do that anymore.
Well, I'm glad you don't do it anymore. Hold on 1 second. Let's see this. Oh, look at Sarah the stupid twat. Bye, Sarah the stupid twat.
No, bring her on stage. Bring her on stage.
No. Sarah's never going to be welcome in my spaces again. But she's one of those people that gaslight rooms. Brent, how you doing, my friend?
Hey, how are you? I kind of disagree that Americans are fascinated with criminals. Americans are fascinated with certain types of criminals. Whether it's like, you know, the attractive guy who kills an executive, whether it's nice Italians who dress in the suits and have little ceremonies to induct their people. You know, it's only certain types of criminals that have whatever to kind of peak, you know, essentially this traditional waspy middle class in America that gets attention. You know, the crack whore down the street who gets their trial a bunch of times. That doesn't, you know, Americans aren't fascinated with that. And I think the vast majority of crime in this country, Americans aren't fascinated with. It's only the certain types of crime that kind of catch the eye of most Americans.
Well, you did bring up one good point, because I'm going to disagree with you. I mean, Charles Manson was getting 2,000 letters a month in prison. And that dude was ugly as fuck. But I'll say, man, guys, let me talk. Okay, you know, I just have a feeling, you can guess like the room. You can come back and you can respect the space I have on my policy. So, Brent, you did bring up one point. I wanted to ask you about this real quick. Why do you think the mafia has been romanticized? Because you got all these movies, these books. Go on YouTube, and the biggest stars on YouTube right now are former mobsters who ratted on the mob. Why do you think the mob has been romanticized, Brent?
Well, one, you should rat on the mob because you should, like, you know, point out criminal behavior and report it. So let's start with that one. I think the better question is why the Italian mob? Why isn't there stories about the Russian mob? Why isn't there stories about, there's multiple other organized crime, but there's not real stories or hooks to break your head. Like what is that distinction? And I think the distinction is for America to be fascinated with it, you need essentially a story. You need Charles Manson. Crazy. But there is a story that connects you to the Beatles, that connects you to all sorts of insanity. That's what you need.
And right, the Beach Boys. Don't forget the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
But can I answer that, JB? Can I answer that?
Hold on. I'm gonna come to you, Tim. Thank you, Brent. Let me just say this. Okay, so when I was on the streets like a knucklehead, I got you, Mojo. I was just about to punch you up. When I was running the streets, right, I engaged with a lot of people. When you're a criminal, you don't have a morals of who you're gonna hang out with, right? So I fucked around with that time mob. I still have friends that are on the streets. I'm not part of their life anymore. The Albanians, the Russian mob, you just know who you can fuck with. The Italians, they're gonna slap you around. The Albanians, they're gonna kill you. They're not even gonna find all the parts. That's really the truth. But then again, I've also fucked around on the streets with some Bloods, with some Crips. It was always business to me. I didn't care where you came from. But anyway, let me say hello to Mojo, then I'm gonna tally. What's up, Mojo?
Not much. I think it's an interesting title, and I don't think it's a new phenomenon. If you think about, going back to train robberies and through the early formation of the mob here in the U.S., we've always kind of glorified it, or at very least publicized it, and I think amongst people that believe that the system is rigged, they see people that break the law, depending on what they do, right? There's certain activities that we say, oh, hell no, put them in the wood chipper. And then there's other things where we look at the criminal as the person that's just trying to even the score and win one for the little guy. And I think that this is an obsession that we've had for a long, long time. And so I don't think it's new. In fact, I don't even think it's as big today as it once was. If you think about it, there was the president of the United States was at a ball game in Chicago back in the 20s, and it was identified. He stood up. Some people cheered, some people booed. Al Capone's at the same game. He gets identified, and he gets a standing ovation. I think that just shows this obsession that we've always kind of had. Now, I don't know if you're going to change that. I actually think that glorifying criminal behavior is about as American as Apple.
Well, thank you for that, Mojo. But I'm going to push back just a smidge, right? Because I'm going to tell you right now, some of the top influencers on YouTube, because this is a social media driven world. YouTube, TikTok, Michael Francesi, Sammy Bocavano, John Elite. These mobsters are really making amazing amounts of money because people are fascinated with the stories. Sammy Bocavano probably makes a couple $1 million a year just doing his content. Talking about, and mind you, this guy admitted to 29 murders. 29. And people just they can't get enough of him. Let me say hello to Tally. Hey, Tally, how you doing?
Can you just tell me how that was pushed back? Because it sounds like to me you're agreeing with me that there's a fascination that people have with these.
Oh, I thought you had said that it had died down. My apologies.
No, I think it's died down from the glory days of Al Capone. Like Al Capone was literally held up at the time. I mean, Hollywood wanted to make movies about him, and like I said, he was at a ball game where he gets the standing ovation, and the mixed reaction is given to the President of the United States. I'm just suggesting that it's an old tradition that still continues today, but I think some people are treating it like it's a new phenomenon. I think we've been obsessed with the criminal element. Our entire existence is a criminal element. If you listen to the British, they would say that we were committing crimes that we were traitors when we revolted. I think it's in our DNA as Americans to cheer for the guy that's given to the man. That's a.
Do you think? And then I want to go to Tally. Do you think that Americans, I can't speak for outside America because I've only been to a couple places, but do you think Americans cheer on more the anti-hero than the hero?
I think the anti-hero is a newer concept to us, but what I believe is that depending on who you're committing the crime against, if you're stealing a purse from an old woman, I think that all Americans would look down on that. I think if you were finding a way to beat the system and your crime was to, let's say, evade taxes, I think there's a lot of Americans that are down with that they're like, yeah, stick it to the man. And so it really depends on who the victim of your crime.
I agree, and I think everybody's going to support any anti-hero that's against the government. How you doing, Tally?
Hi. Actually, Mojo said a lot of what I was thinking as well. I think there is the additional element of the rags to riches story being very American, and that having the opportunity to hop classes legitimately is ideal, but then the thought that you could do it quickly, I think is tantalizing for some people. In terms of other kinds of crime, I don't know, the mob, I would say specifically, it has been romanticized. They focus more on the family element when they portray these people, and less about the terrorism that might have happened in the neighborhoods that they were, air quotes, protecting. That is, I don't see any long-term effects for that, because realistically, some of those mob families also, I think, funded fire departments and other local good presence as they legitimize their business. And someone did mention the Russian mob. Whatever happened to them? Did they ever go legitimate?
Well,
maybe that's why we're not talking about them anymore.
Well, the Russian mob, from what I understand, moved heavily into the medical field. They opened up clinics, do insurance fraud, and all that other stuff.
A lot of the low-level soldiers in the Russian mob have tied in with other groups. For example, in the East Bay chapter in California of Hell's Angels, it's more than 50% of the Hell's Angels that are in the East Bay chapter are Russian, and so they haven't really gone away. I think they're just they've joined new.
Well, let me just say something about the mob. Like I said, it was my lived experience. I dealt with two gentlemen specifically. One was with the Lucchese's, one was with the Gambino family. This one I was a criminal. And I will definitely say that the Gambino family, for me, my interactions was fantastic. Right? You sense that there was somewhat of honor there. The Lucchese's, straight pieces of shit, wouldn't go near them. And they will feed their babies to the wolves just to make $1. And that was just my lived experience with the Italian mob. Now, the Albanian mob, they're all about business. Don't fuck them over. You'll be all right. You'll make money. The Russian mob, I really don't trust them. But yeah, so guys, this is how the debates. Why are Americans fascinated with crime and criminals?
JB, I have a question.
Sure, of course.
Really quickly before you go to El Normo, I'm just curious, from your perspective and your experience, I mean, when we talk about the Italian mob being romanticized compared to other crime families, the Russians, et cetera, what role do you think the media has played in portraying and presenting this image that Italian mobsters, protect their communities, they only target bad people, or they uphold honor, that makes them. Do you think films have presented the Italian mob in a way that makes them seem very morally complex rather than just violent?
That's a great question. I'm going to tell you what happened. For those who watched, ever seen The Godfather, I'm sure everybody in this room has seen The Godfather. Joe Colombo, who was the head of the Colombo crime family, got wind of this movie being made about the mafia. And he put so much pressure on Paramount that if you ever watch The Godfather, you'll see they never mention the word mafia. he had a mobster there. As a matter of fact, for those who know the movie, Luca Brasi was actually an enforcer for the Colombo crime family, like in real life. He only got the role by accident. The guy who plays Luca Brasi was a real life mobster. The Colombos were all over that movie. They were not going to use the word mafia. I think the media has had a lot to do with romanticizing the mob. Let me go to let me say hello to El Normal. Hello, El Normal.
Hi, I was pulling up Luca Brasi's speech because an interesting detail is that obviously he was not a professional actor. As you say, he was an enforcer for the mob, and he was look, his name is Lenny Montana, and I am honored and grateful that you have invited me to your daughter's wedding on the day of her wedding day. He was so nervous, so they filmed him practicing his speech, and then they used him practicing for the final cut of the film, as he was sort of fumbling with the words. But it worked because he was nervous to talk to the Godfather.
Marlon Brando.
Indeed. God, what a tremendous couple of films. So I do think that
no, let me ask you a question real quick before you're going to say what you're going to say. Why do you think, and it was a good question I was asked earlier, why do you think of all the mobs that are out there, the Italian mob, the Irish mob, all these different mobs, the Albanian mob, why do you think the Italian one has been romanticized forever?
Well, number one, they're the most successful. And number two, they're the most organized of the organized crime families. And number three, I believe they go all the way back to Roman times, in which the people of Sicily resisted Roman occupation. And there was a certain kind of local honor in resisting the rich landlords that came from off island Sicily, and they organized a resistance movement against occupation. Doesn't that sound familiar? So, and they do have certain values. If you come to mob neighborhoods, and I guess we all know a few. We'll just pick one that's well known to everybody, Little Italy. You dare not even spit on the sidewalk because ladies are sitting out there on their beach chairs, talking and giving you the hairy eyeball, giving you the malocchio, and you'll get in trouble if you are disrespectful in a mob neighborhood. So they do indeed protect their neighborhoods.
Well, not just the mob that was romanticized, but we'll just look at recent times, like Luigi Mangione, right? Women are still going crazy for this guy. Is it because of the way he looks? Is it because of the message? Is it because he's the anti-hero? What are you thinking?
So here's another piece of the puzzle. We all have criminal impulses because we're human beings, but the mob has a set of rules under which you can act out on your criminal impulses until you get caught and punished, and indulge that very sadistic, animalistic side of you. So the girls who, for example, write love letters to Luigi Mangione or to Ted Bundy, what was he, the Hillside Strangler, or the Green River Killer, or to Charlie Manson. They love these guys because they act out, in this case, the women's violent fantasies of revenge and murder. That's my psychological analysis.
And JB, I would be remiss not to remind everybody that it was a Jewish mobster, Bugsy Siegel, that started Vegas.
Well, Bugsy Siegel was sent to Vegas, respectfully, but I think it's definitely important to mention that some of the most important characters that are ancillary to the Italian mafia are guys like Dutch Schultz. Meyer Lansky's probably the most successful gangster of all time, living a full life, dying of natural causes. Because the casinos weren't just built in Vegas. That was
was a result of after Meyer Lansky opening casinos in Cuba, and the mob was thrown out when Castro came into power. And so I personally think the reason why we hold them in such high regard is that as Americans, we love storytelling, and the storytelling of doing these amazing things, like building casinos, and there's this legend behind these guys, but it was not just simply Italians. In fact, the relationship that Lucky Luciano had with guys like Bugsy Siegel and Meyer Lansky, which led to them to putting together a commission where you used to have a boss of bosses, and then once they had the big war, they were able to take out these feuding factions and say, hey, look, we will have less drama if we put together a commission. And so that's what they did. And so I think people look at that and they say, wow, this is not any different than a police department or a military that has a chain of command, a set of rules that they strictly enforce. The only thing that shifted is what their code enforces. And so I think there's a lot of people that look at this and just say, these guys are more well organized than any company I've ever worked for. They just happen to be doing things that produce this illicit.
Yeah, there was a huge difference. These are people who did extrajudicial murder, who did constant coercion of lawful business owners. These were bad people, and it's kind of interesting to hear a libertarian talk about how, to glorify them, yet kind of these.
I don't know if you have listening comprehension skills. Hold on. What I said was, I'll repeat this for the people that don't know how to listen and comprehend. What I said was, they are glorified. I'm not the press. I'm not the one that glorified them. But this is why people look up to them. Now, you want to put that on me, that's fine, but now you're giving me far more credit for influence over the population than I deserve. And Brett, I know that you look up to me, but I got to tell you, I don't have those kind of powers.
The glorification of the mob, I just think shows a shortcoming in American culture in general. You're glorifying essentially thugs who dress in white suits.
Brent, let me ask you a question. You don't even get up. I just want to ask you this question. And I'm not disagreeing with either one of you. I think you might both be right. But do you consider Donald Trump a criminal who's a thug?
I think there's ample evidence that he broke the law. I don't think he's a violent criminal. I don't think he's a violent person who did things that the mafia in the 30s, 20s, and up to today did. I don't think he's a person that goes in and basically threatens a business owner and threatens the families of business owners in seeking rent. I think that sort of behavior is unexcusable, and I think the glorification of that behavior is unexcusable. And I will say, as much as we talk about glorification, there's a reason why it was wildly popular that Kennedy went against the mob. Like these anti-organized crime bills that were. Let me finish with this real quick. These organized crime movements that occurred, they had wide popular support because of the violence that these organizations did.
But Brent, there's a thing in the chat from Mr. Rodney. Trump just dropped bombs in Iran. Yeah, he's not a violent person. So,
I wanted to say that. I wanted to say this. I'm glad you say there's, quote, ample evidence that he broke the law, close quote. Because you're 100% right. He went to trial. He was convicted by a jury of breaking the law. I agree with you. That's ample evidence.
If I could jump back in here for a second, I think one of the things that Brent might be missing, and I think his head's in the right place of like, hey, you shouldn't glorify the people that are robbing and stealing from people. I think the part that he might be missing is that if you're comparing that to a society where no theft happens, I absolutely say that's terrible. But what I will make the argument for is that a city that's run, if the crime in your city is organized, that's actually better for the city than a city in which the crime is unorganized. I don't know why the fuck you would interrupt me. I don't know why the fuck you would interrupt me. That was weird as fuck. Here's what happens when the organized criminals don't call the shots in their city. Then the crime gets democratized. Now you don't even have any type of code of ethics, and the things that happen are far more out of control. The one thing that organized criminals would agree upon is that they were in business to make money and find ways to get income that's hard to tax. This was their business model, and yes, there are people that get killed, but if you go back and look at the people that get killed, it's not like The Sopranos, not like some of these other films that you'll watch. The actual death that is responsible for the mob is far less than these shows try to glorify, and in fact, most of the time, in order for them to allow for a hit to take place, the person that they're going after has done something wrong, right? And so I think Goodfellas says it best. The line was was narrated by Ray Liotta when they show the bratwurst being eaten by Polly, and he says, what people don't understand is it's a police department for wise guys. What it did is it took people that were going to commit crimes anyways and gave them some sense of boundaries, and it gave them some code. That doesn't mean that we should say that they're great. I actually think that we should throw people in jail that commit robbery or murder, extortion. Absolutely, you should throw them in jail. By the way, they know that if they get caught, they go to jail, and their code just says, "Hey, don't rat on your friends." I think, like, if anything, I appreciate the difference between organized and unorganized crime. If you gave me a magic bullet that would eliminate all crime, great, we'll do that. But since we don't have that magic bullet, I would say a town that's ran by organized criminals is just better than what we have in, let's say, Baltimore, Chicago, Kansas City, some of these cities, which, by the way, all had mob before the RICO statute. The RICO statute did one thing. It turned every criminal into a potential snitch. And so kudos on the American government, the justice system, for figuring out the Achilles heel. Hey, we'll let you off if you rat on your friends. And what we found was that once you were able to provide those kind of protections, they took it. But yeah, I think you go look at cities that had organized crime versus ones that have unorganized crime, and you'll see that the average citizen is safer when the crime is. So 2 on that.
Mojo! Hey! So you're pretty much saying that the Proud Boys are
I don't know what this guy's talking about.
What is this guy yelling? Doing a good job right now, huh?
What is he yelling about?
I have no idea, bro. I have no idea.
Wait, hold on. And who brought up the Proud Boys? Like, so this guy brings up the Proud Boys, and now he wants. Okay, go ahead. Bring him back up so he can talk about the Proud Boys. I don't think anybody on the stage brought up the Proud.
All right, but let's get a cue first before we go. KTP, I got you. Yo, home, you gotta chill out, man. I have a warm mic policy. I go in queue order. You're in the queue. You gotta just mute up until I get you. Thank you, sir. Let me go to Sage and then home. Seeley, how you doing, dude? Seeley, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I just got off work. Everything's great. So the topic is beautiful. I remember Machine Gun Kelly reading about that. That wasn't organized. Everybody loved it. Babyface Nelson. That was not organized. Everybody loved it. Back in the days when you had the gunslingers, everybody loved it. So I just see this country just has a thing with evildoers. Is it over the top now in 2025? Of course it is. But I just think that, unfortunately, America does this picking and choosing on when it wants to be noble and when it wants to have integrity. And my last point, when you see so many people getting arrested by police for ordinance and policy, county policies, as opposed to well, let me reframe it. Money crimes as opposed to theft and shooting, and you just see too many officers spending their time dealing with. Go get somebody that's doing retail theft. Go get somebody who's doing some theft. Yeah, you got people messing with folks because their tail light is out.
Well, hold on. Let me just say this, man. This is not unique, by the way, to the Italian mob, right? And I'm not looking to make this into a race room. Please, let's not go down that road. But a certain segment of America looks up to like Bumpy Johnson, Frank Lucas, Nicky Barnes, right? They're the anti-heroes in certain communities. So let's not just keep it on the Italian mob. I mean, because they've been romanticized the most. But we all know about Bumpy Johnson, Nicky Barnes, and stuff like that. So I just want to throw that in there. Let me go to Sage, then Doc, then Home. Sage, how you doing? Yo, see, by the way, cash in your pig ticket, man. You come to the room all the time. Sage, are you there? All right, let me go to Doc. Doc, you got a minute, Doc? Doc, are you there? All right.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Do you want to chime in, sir? You got a minute.
Yeah. Let me just say this. I'm gonna make two things, okay? No, America loves to see crime on movies, in the theater, on television. That does not mean America glorifies criminals. Let me just tell you why. Movie Scarface, very popular movie. However, in real life, America voted politicians in who were for laws that stopped money laundering and illicit drugs coming into the United States of America. So while they love Scarface, they voted for politicians who had proposed legislations.
Which Scarface are you referring to? Are you referring to the Paul Mooney version, or are you referring to the Al Pacino terrible?
Wait a minute, okay.
Hey, I'm gonna answer this guy.
Can you I should get more time, JB.
You can have plenty of time. I was asking a question. Are you not?
Okay.
I was just asking you a question.
I'm gonna tell you.
Which Scarface were you referring to? Oh, okay. That movie sucked. His accent was horrible.
Well, okay. Well, a lot of people like Al Pacino movie. Okay, they like that movie, and so America then, like I said, glorifies the theater, the cinema of these criminals. In real life, America differs. Okay, now listen. Mojo called me a monkey in another room, and
Wait, hold on.
That's a fucking lie.
Wait a second. Time out. Everybody mute up. Doc, you're saying that Mojo called you a monkey? I find it hard to believe.
Listen, if people are going to criticize me for anything, go ahead. But if you're going to make up stories, you're never going to be in a fucking space. I will put the word out. You will never be on any stage in any clubhouse room. Go fuck yourself if you're going to make...
I agree with that. I sign off on that. So, guys, I'm going to do a quick room reset. It's Healthy Debates. Why are Americans fascinated with crime and criminals? Right? I get 1,000 questions a week on my past. I speak about it openly. But can I finish? Because I'm doing my reset. Guys, you have a pig ticket, cash it in. We got some heavy hitters in here today. We got Miss Clark. We got Fire. We got Pockets. Son wants to come up, guys. Let's bring some Goku up. We got one mic. We got Ash Gigi, one of the coolest people on this app. April, how you doing? Lindsay, my friend Lindsay. Guys, if you want to come up, just raise your hand. We're talking everything crime, criminals, and why Americans are fascinated with that. Sage, I see you flashing. How you doing, Sage?
Hey, I'm good, man. How are you?
Doing fantastic. You want to chime in on the conversation, sir?
Yeah, man. I think it's...
But I was talking earlier, y'all cut me off, and y'all totally being hella rude. What's up with that?
So here's how it works. I said I'd come back to you. I don't do the crybaby shit in my room. Everybody gets to speak. Everybody. Even if I disagree with you. So just chill out. You want to come back up, you'll get your turn. I'm sorry, Sage, please. And then we're going to go Scott and Son. Kids?
Yeah, I think the main reason for this is, I think in America we have a somewhat, I know we have
have a streak of what you call libertarianism, right? So when we see this anti-hero, whether it's Tony Soprano, Tony Montano, or James Cagney, right? These anti-establishment figures, right? Public Enemy #1, like all these films from the 30s go to the 70s, from The Godfather, etc. Right? It's this anti-establishment figure, right? Like I think that's the appeal there, that it's anti-government. It's not the crimes themselves, right? The degeneracy, the dedicate or the lifestyle. Maybe there is the appeal there also, but it's mainly the how I say this anti-establishment spirit, right? I think this is built in within American, because we don't want big governments, right? We don't want we don't want regulation. We don't want we didn't like when alcohol was banned, And if you actually trace the Hollywood catalog, they reflect like each anti-hero, right? James Cagney, for example, or even Bogart, right? They were what kind of gangster roles they played? They played the
Sage Land, your plan, please.
The Al Capone figure, or whatever. Then it became when it became cocaine, the cocaine guy, right? So it reflects this kind of anti-establishment in a big kind of on my planet.
Thank you. So, other mods, I can't bring them home. If you want to bring them back to the stage, I can't do it for some reason. But if you guys want to talk, so I try to bring them up, it's not letting me happen. Oh, I forgot to say hello to Bunny, who's one of the coolest ladies on the set. Hello, Bunny.
By the way, the motherfucker, we still in the fucking thing. It's not
man, you just got put back to the stage. You're gonna have to wait now to get back to the line.
Well, I just don't have time because sometimes you get a full can.
Wait a second. Scott, how you doing, Scott? KTP, I'm gonna get you, Scott. KTP. Scott Jones, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. Good to see everybody. This is heavy hitting stages, right, JP? So clubhouse.
Hey, Scott, I saw that down in your city, like 10 people got shot, 3 people got murdered yesterday.
It was a crazy, I saw a ring cam today from the house, one of the houses right there where the porch is crazy. Yeah, it's not far from where I live, actually. It's just, it's not, it's sort of, I live in like West Philly. I live like just west of City Hall, and this is like southwest, so it's not far from where I live. But yeah, it was pretty.
So, Scott, why are Americans fascinated with crime and criminals?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's really complicated, right? But I mean, I think, but obviously media has a lot to do with it, right? But it's so interesting because we incarcerate per capita just so much more of our population, right, than most industrialized nations, right? So that's got to have something to do with it. I mean, just history of places like Sweden, they're shutting down prisons, right? They just don't lock up as many of their population. So
they also don't have as much violence as America. Right, drug problems.
Right, and what is that, right? I mean, you just think, are we just a more violent people, right? That might be, right? It might just be, is it sort of culturally? Is it something to do with the founding story of the country? Or are we just sort of a frontiery, gunning, wild, sort of independent, everybody? What is it that makes us so different than our industrialized? And I don't know. I mean, this is not a sort of a gotcha setup or anything. It's a real question. Like, what is it that, why do we have such a bigger crime problem?
Scotty, don't even meet up. Let's have this conversation. Do you want me to stir the pot a little bit, or you want the vanilla answer?
I always want you to stir the pot, buddy.
Okay, because I'm about to get donkey punched by Mojo. There's too many guns. We need stricter gun restriction. I keep on saying this because he's ready to fucking tear me up now. We need more stricter restrictions. You let me finish. I know it.
Well, no, let me just say this. This may surprise you. You have every right to be wrong.
Thank you. I think there's just too many guns, too much easy access to guns, not enough serious background checks on mentally ill people. that's a start point. We also have companies like the Sackler family that made billions of dollars on making Americans dependent on oxycodone. But they don't go to jail. They're the biggest drug dealers in the history of the country. But let me ask you, Brent, what do you think? Why do you think America's such a violent country? Right?
I think first we need to recognize that violence and violent crime has come down tremendously. Like the level, Roger was talking about, well, we really have organized crime and not, democratized crime. Well, if that was the case, you would have thought you would have seen lower crime in the 70s, in the 80s, etc. You haven't. We've made tremendous strides in bringing down this violent death in this country.
Brent, hold on. From 1990 to 1993, the most violent period in American history, these were after the rehab statutes came and when organized crime was stepped on. So Brent, respectfully, I don't think you know what you're talking about. I think you understand that 1990 to 1993 was the most violent period in U.S. history, but I don't think you understand.
Yeah, I mean, the period now that we're in is a lower crime rate than the period in the 80s. You had a spike in COVID, and you did have a high period in the period that Roger mentioned, but we have been in a decline in just violent deaths in this country for a long time. And that's something.
Yeah, if I may, that's capital crimes, and Roger is 100% correct. In the early 90s, the capital crimes and the crime rate, huge. Capital crimes, murder, have gone down in the past 20 years, but street crime, robbing stores, retail crime, that's not down.
And I'm happy once I'm done talking to put in some crime statistics going back to the 70s, and happy to do that. But to kind of finish up my point, it's a great thing that we're much less likely to die of a violent death now than in the 1970s or 1980s. I think the reason why we are statistically higher than other kind of like countries is the reasons that you mentioned. Prevalence of guns on the street per capita, number of guns for the U.S. I think that's the biggest explanatory variable of why violent death is so much higher per capita in the United States than other places. But I think we need to focus on what we can get done, and I don't think we're taking everybody's guns anytime soon. I think we need to focus on what we can get.
Let me just jump in real quick. So you go off on these things about guns and whatnot, and I think you know that there's nobody on the app that's more educated on statistics around gun violence than I am. I think everybody acknowledges that, right? That I've actually done the work and I know what the statistics are. And the one thing that you've always ran from, in fact, I've seen you run from the stage when you're asked this question, is if you believe that more guns translates into more violence, then how on earth can you explain that the most violent period in the U.S. history was 1990 to 1993, considering there was less total guns and less guns, I'm sorry, there was less guns and less guns per capita in 1990 to 1993 than there is today, yet there was more violence. This statistic stands out to show you that any argument that says more guns equals more violence, all you have to do is look at 1990 to 1993 to know that you're factually incorrect.
Let me just add a number. Let me add a number to what Roger is saying, and I'll shut up. In 2020, right before COVID, statistics showed that we had a little over 300 million guns in circulation, probably about one gun for every person, 330 million. As of last year, that number increased to over 400 million
didn't hold him. He just crashed out.
I didn't over.
So here's the important thing to note. Anyone that makes the argument that more guns equal more violent crime or more gun crime, all you have to do is look at the statistics that in 1990 to 1993 we had less guns and we had more gun violence. So factually, he has nothing to stand on. I still think we have too much gun violence, but in terms of comparing it to other countries, which is what he was about to get into, is the fact that if you were to take out of our statistics suicide, justifiable homicide, and accidents, and only look at homicide, what you will find is that the vast majority of the homicide happened within about an 8 square block radius of about 10 cities in America. And if you take those out of the statistics, we're one of the safest countries on the planet to be in. So basically, if you stay away from a corner where people are competing to who's going to sell drugs on that corner, you would limit our gun violence to almost negligible levels. And so if you can have a thumbs down all you guys want, but I'm going to tell you, nobody can refute the statistics, right? Like any time they say more guns equals more violence, I could show them the math that they're not only are they incorrect, but I will show it to them. They'll continue to repeat it despite looking at the facts. These people don't care about facts. They just got a thought that guns bad, and they don't look at any of the math, any of the statistics. They've done zero research into any of it. And I'll tell you, this is an open challenge to anybody on Clubhouse or anywhere else. If you want to talk about the gun violence problem in America, I will debate you any day of the week, twice on Sunday. Don't care who the moderator is. I will tell you right now, there's nobody on this app that knows more about this topic than I do. That's not a brag. It's just telling the truth.
Well,
and if I said anything else, you would know I...
Well, Mr. Mojo, let me just say something that was put in the chat. The white man writes, you do a quick Google search, and all it wants to show you is that stricter gun control reduces gun deaths, which is true. But it ignores the more important point, which is whether it reduces homicide and violent crime overall. It doesn't. So I want to put that. But guys, this is not a two-way room. I was asked a question, and on some stage I got you. I knew by saying what I said, Mojo was going to come off immediately. This is healthy debates, guys. Why are Americans fascinated with crime and criminals? Because look who it is. Akima came to the fake Jews room. Let me go to one mic. And then Father Drew. One Mike, how you doing?
What's good, brother? How you feeling today? Good?
I'm feeling fantastic, sir. Yourself?
All right, I'm great. Great topic.
Thank you.
I think the situation here is America loves crime because America loves money. And as long as you got money, and the love of money, you're going to have crime. The only thing about it is I think that America has a blind eye to certain criminals. There are some criminals that don't get mentioned, and then there are some criminals that get highlighted. Like the brother was talking about organized crime. It's a lot of organized crime out here, but some organized crime don't get spoke about as much as others, like how he highlighted in a square mile radius, I think a 10 square mile radius in some of these cities. So it kind of alludes to like those are the urban cities where the gangs are at, per se, and drugs. Well, there's somebody bringing the drugs in, but we don't talk about those criminals. You understand what I'm saying? So I just think that it's a slippery slope when you talk about the criminals and who's getting locked up opposed to who's getting a blind eye.
Well, one mic. One mic. Let's have a little exchange before I go to Father Drew.
Okay, I'm
and
here.
certainty. So over the last, I don't know, let's say since September, I'm guessing October. Right now, you can fact check me on this. The entire country's been talking about P. Diddy. The entire country. Why the fascination with somebody like him? And he's not white.
Hold up, say that one more time. I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
I said since September, the entire country's been fascinated, enthralled by this P. Diddy trial. Everybody picked a side. It was like with OJ, everybody picked a side. P. Diddy's not white. He was getting romanticized on TMZ every day. So tell me, why is that?
Because of his status. If it was you, God forbid, if it was you, nothing to be said publicly.
Oh, one night it was me, and it was made public. Trust me. But I'm gonna let Nye have this conversation. Again, Miss Nye.
No, I was just gonna kind of add on to kind of what One Mike was saying. It's the whole, it's the legacy that is Puff Daddy. It is his imprint in hip hop culture. He also represents what many people believe is not attainable for many Black male Americans, and that is the rich, this high lifestyle that Puffy has, achieved. All of it is sexy for some people. It is romantic. It's dark. It's disturbing. There's a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding him and his money and his fortune and his family and his mama / alleged auntie, the children, the symbolisms, the imagery that people are paying attention to.
Let's pivot for a second. Don't mute up. Let me ask you a question. We'll replace Diddy with OJ. Tell me about that. Because we'll replace Diddy with OJ. Why was everybody in America so fascinated with that?
With the OJ? Well, again, it was, first of all, you have the whole interracial thing at play. The big Black man who was beloved at the time, right? Famous, beloved because of his football and acting career. Mind you, he still had the reputation of beating women. His first wife, who was Black, no one cared. The media didn't make a big deal about it. But when it was racialized because of his marriage to Nicole Brown Simpson, that became a very hot topic.
Not until he cut her head off.
Well, that was part of, listen, that's what I'm saying.
No one in America really gave a shit about Nicole Brown Simpson until she ended up.
Nobody cared that he had a reputation for beating up women.
Yes, nobody cared. Nobody cared until he decapitated her.
And even when Nicole Brown Simpson, I don't know why you want to keep calling this woman system. When Nicole Brown was allegedly complaining about OJ beating her ass, no one cared, right? It became a hot topic, and I don't mean sexy as in turning people on, but the entire lore around the OJ Simpson case was one of the best real life stories that you could follow along in real time, starting with the Bronco chase. Everything about it was high drama, chaotic, right? It had violence, it had sex, it had interracial sex, it had mixed race children. It was the story of the decade at the time. Everyone was fascinated by it. And then add the corrupt cop narrative that unfolded during the trial.
Which occurred right after Rodney King. Yes, you're 100% correct.
Steve, you gotta let it
right.
Steve.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll shut up. No problem.
And then you had, and I'll land here, and then you had the big divide in the social conversation where a lot of folks think or thought at the time that all of Black America was siding with OJ because he was Black. And you had a lot of white folks, and I remember this vividly because in a lot of my college classrooms at the time, I was in college, a lot of my white professors hosted conversations about this. So we got to hear, white folks saying things that the media was already reporting. And that is, you had many white people in America believing that all of Black America was siding with him because he's Black, and he was going to get off because he was Black. I mean, we looked at it as he got off because the trial was just in shambles. There was a lot of weirdness unfolding in the trial. You had a lot of witnesses that were not reliable or believable. So, and then I'll land here. I promise I'll land right here. If you've lived in LA, folks who claim to know somebody who knows somebody, right, or who was directly connected to the Simpsons or the Brown family, they all tell a different story than what was painted in the media, and a lot of them have theories about who the real killer was. So there was a lot of that, and the conspiracy around that case made it a more fascinating case. If I'm sorry for being long.
No, you were fine. Mojo, I know you want to get in the queue. Sage, I got you. We go Mojo, Father Drew, Dwight, and Double. Mojo, you want to get in the queue?
Yeah, this is just real quick. I just want to explain a little bit about how this country works. When you have a company that has control over the government, which several companies do, but one of the largest companies that has a consistent dividend that they pay to their shareholders, that is a dominant player in big pharma like Johnson & Johnson. My argument for why P. Diddy got off was because Johnson & Johnson cannot afford to have their stock plummet and not be able to pay dividends to their shareholders if P. Diddy stops buying baby oil. So I would say that the acquittal is a direct responsibility, and we can look back, and Johnson & Johnson is the reason why P. Diddy got acquitted.
Thank you very much, Mojo. So we're going to go to Father Drew, then Double, then Dwight. Father Drew, how you doing?
Hey, doing all right. How are you?
Doing all right, man. Why Americans fascinated with crime and criminals?
Well, because people are fascinated with people trying to get away with things. When you do a crime, you think you're smart enough to get away with it. And people love the storytelling. That's wonderful too. I think that I'm a criminal myself, so I know the system. I know the process. I know all that stuff. And so, by the way, if you're ever going to do a crime, prison is the last place you want to go. Been there, done that. I want to go back to it. So, but it's trials and tribulations. We all, sometimes we're all curious about how things work and all that stuff, and that's exactly what happened to me. So, anyways, that's it.
Thank you, Father Drew. Appreciate you. I will say this. Any advice to budding criminals in the room? If you're thinking about doing crime, do it by yourself, because I guarantee you co-defense can snitch on you. That's a fact. Double Agent, what's good? Then we'll go to Dwight. Double Agent.
Hey. Well, JB, I was just in Baltimore, and just driving around there. You definitely witnessed a lot of crimes. I think that many of the cities of America are in a situation that you call an anarcho-tyranny. That is when laws are designed to enforce arbitrary or deliberately complicated rules against
You go into court as a defendant, you automatically labeled guilty. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. But yeah, like,
Yeah, I take your word for it. But the point is, we have way too many protections for people. We are not going hard enough, and we're not surveilling people. And then when we know people are criminals, we aren't enforcing it. We just let it go. And I think this is where, the fascination with criminals is because we have so much of it, and because we give so much assistance to criminals to keep doing crimes. And what I propose is that we look at a country like Japan or Singapore, and we say, that is our standard. We can do even better than they can on crimes. And we will enforce and monitor our environment until we get the numbers to those levels. That's my proposal. Thank you very much.
thank the devil. And I'm going to tell you the difference between America, Korea, and Japan. This is going to be a polarizing statement, people. Hold on. I guarantee you there's more two-parent families in those two countries than we have here in America. Let me go to Dwight. Hey, Dwight, how you doing? Dwight, are you there?
Something came up. Y'all have to come back to me if you have time later.
Absolutely, I'll come back to you. So I want everybody, nobody on stage, you gotta stop. Because we got an MVP, VIP on stage. He likes to come to non-Jewish rooms, but with fake Jews. I'm gonna hand him my chemo, and give him 2 minutes to say whatever he likes, as long as it's not personal attacks. The mic is yours to keep.
Baby, I'm not a personal attacker. I just back things up. I went there on the first attack anyone else unless they attack me first. And I really have much to say. Rob invited me up going to stage, but to ask the question, why are Americans so fascinated with crime? Because they bred that throughout the history. I mean, not history, but throughout American history. With all the gangster movies, they glamorize criminals. That's why Americans are fascinated with them. So that's all.
Thank you for that astute observation. Sage, how you doing, Sage? I know you've been flashing your mic. Do you want to go, Sage?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it back to the point about the weapons. I don't think, somebody mentioned the UK with the knife epidemic, right? I don't think if we take away the guns, I think this is a social ill, a cultural, something, that's wrong with the society that resorts to, violence, right? Replace the guns, take away the guns, you'll have knife crime, so I don't think it's just about them.
Thank you, Sage. Let me welcome Vero to the stage. Hey, Vero, it's been a few days. How you doing?
Hi. What's going on?
Hi. Chilling. Why are Americans fascinated with crime and criminals?
I was just reading something recently. I don't know what it was. School shootings, I think. And because Austria recently had a school shooting. Terrible. Students died. So it was terrible. So just looking it up, and I was wondering why, are shootings in other areas other than America, why are they being shown? But one of the things they say is Americans like to put a face on tragedy, which I thought was very interesting. I'm not too sure. I guess why do we do it? Sensationalism, self-favors.
Why do you think there's so many school shootings in America, and how can we prevent them?
Oh gosh, I have no clue. What a big question. Oh gosh, I couldn't even understand why. I remember a kid in my high school was being bullied and he brought a knife to school. I think about things like that. Is it the bullying? Is it sensitivity? I don't know. That's a big question. I don't know, but hello. I also want to say quickly, I put it in the chat, the reason why countries like Japan and Korea work so well is because it's a homogenous society. When everyone's the same, it's easy to kind of put everyone on the same track, or control even, if you want to go that far. So I just wanted to put that out there too. But yeah, hey everybody, yeah.
Thanks. Before the Jew, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that Brett was 100% wrong, and the reason why I say that is because
We don't need you to tell us why Brent's wrong. Brent tells us why Brent's wrong. What is
No. I understand, but here in Mexico, like citizens can't have guns, and so.
Father, Brent's not here to hear your objection.
No,
Yeah, so make a point that has nothing to do with Brent. How about that? I think anyone that's ever listened to him for any amount of time understands that Brent is wrong about virtually everything. We don't need you to narrate.
Okay.
Thank you, Father Jude. Thank you, Mojo.
Yeah, dude, I don't know why we're talking about guns. You're just going to make me cranky, and then you're going to hear a lecture, and we're going to expose how little everybody on the stage and the audience knows about guns. So we should probably move on to the topic at hand. It's just like everyone wants to go after the guns. I just got to tell you, as somebody that owns several firearms, never once has any of my guns gotten out of a safe, loaded themselves, and pulled a trigger and harmed anyone. And so, for those of you that believe that guns are bad, I can tell you my guns are well behaved. I tell them sit, they sit. I tell them to stay, they stay, and my guns are very well behaved.
All right, so with that, let me do a quick room reset so we get back on topic. Guys, healthy debates. Why are Americans so fascinated with crime and criminals? Luigi Mangione, Pete Diddy, the list goes on and on and on. The Menendez brothers, OJ, right? America's just fascinated with these people.
Jeffrey Dahmer.
And Jeffrey Dahmer, exactly. Like, if you look at the top podcasts besides Joe Rogan, I think out of the top 10, I think 6 are true crime. People are just fascinated with it. I don't understand why. Well, I lived that life. Just Mojo, I lived that life. And let me tell you something, no bullshit. It's more stressful being a criminal than just being a civilian. But go ahead, Mojo.
But JB, as we discussed earlier, this is like a long American tradition. If you think about the 1800s, somebody like Jesse James in post-Civil War, or even Billy the Kid, right? People glorify Billy the Kid because they think he's just this misunderstood youth, that was up against these outlaws, and maybe he wasn't the bad guy, even though they were counting his death toll. Jesse James, they saw him as robbing the elite. They had it was the guy in California that was robbing stagecoaches. It all depends on who you are harming. I think that we get broad consensus that when you harm children, that you're a vile criminal. But if you find a way to commit a crime that takes money, let's say, from a large corporation, or takes money from government entities, all of a sudden people are so much more sympathetic to that. And I think for good reason, because our sensibilities are, our society, we want to protect women and children, but we don't necessarily want to protect those with money, because there's always been this thing about the haves got their gains in an ill-gotten way, and the system is rigged. It's so unfair, and there might be some truth to that. And so I think because of that gut feeling that the system is rigged against you, that it makes you think that, oh, well, shit, that guy, he robbed the Wells Fargo stagecoach, and they think, good for him. Good for him. Somebody got some of that damn bank's money.
Yeah, but
and
let me ask you a question.
I think that's what.
Let me ask you a question. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm going to ask you a question. I want to go to Christine and Sonia. So you agree with me that Americans are fascinated with crime, criminals. We romanticize them, But the thought that came to mind when you were speaking was, I keep telling him, I'm going to give you a name, and maybe you can explain to me, and I'm being serious, why he was so reviled, so hated. Bernie Madoff, because he played the system, and he took money from millionaires and billionaires, and he was very hated.
Yeah, I think Bernie Madoff, though, shows the fact that he was taking advantage of people, and I agree that that's an example of him taking advantage of people that had a little bit more money. But what we like to see, whether it played out in news articles. I mean, Bonnie and Clyde got a lot of press. What we like
to see is that there's somebody going out that we think of as a modern day Robin Hood, right? There's a lot of people that believe that, you know, that stealing from the rich is a good thing to do, right? There's a lot of people that believe in that narrative, right? And I don't believe in that narrative. I don't think stealing from anybody is a good idea. But there's other things that people could agree upon. Like when Richard Ramirez was going around, as the Night Stalker killing people, you guys remember the end that he got to is when people found him and beat the living shit out of him. I don't think if the people got their hands on Luigi, they would beat the shit out of him. I think there's people out there that, and I think you guys know this, that look to Luigi to be some kind of a hero. And so it really just depends on what kind of violence you're committing, what kind of theft you're committing, who the victim of your crime is going to tell a lot about who's going to jump on your side to say that it was okay.
Thank you, Mojo. Appreciate you. Sage, hold on. So I'm going to go to Christine, then Sonia. And I'm just going to say something before I go to Christine. Being on this app for 5 years, and this is no bullshit, I've seen more criminals, more con men and con women on this app than I've ever experienced in my life. And remember, I ran the streets hardcore. People have made millions of dollars being con, and it's some of the biggest influences on this app that you guys follow religiously. It's like a fucking cult with some of you people, and it makes no sense to me. Anyway, let me say hello to Christine. Hey, Christine, how you doing?
Good, thanks. So I have two questions for you guys, and just two comments. One is, not to go back to guns, but just in general the violence, because we don't really, I know we have violence in this country, but we're not in like war conflict that we deal with extreme violence all the time. So I wonder if people think that the fascination that I think is marketed to us, is that also partially because we really in general don't actually encounter it daily, for a lot of people. And then I always think that I've encountered parts of America that guns are a natural part of their life. Like, they start at 5 years old, they're trained properly, and I wonder if those communities are as fascinated with these kind of crimes as maybe like places like New York, where it does quite exist a lot, but we're not able to really own guns here, or other, it's very hard to engage in any kind of object that would inflict harm other than a car. And then I think, though, just to comment on a personal opinion, as an educator, I was practically sick to my stomach a few years ago, constantly listening to kids talk about, I don't know if it was the Dahmer series or whatever series it was on Netflix, which from what I understand was extremely, I don't know if it was visually graphic because I refused to watch it, but was to the point where the conversation was sickening to hear children have access to this. And I've seen firsthand, artistically, kids want to illustrate these people and almost celebrate them, which is a part of our society. Like you're talking about the Luigi guy, we've had, I don't know if it was Rolling Stone that did the cover with the Boston bomber. There's been parts of our society that have played with the ethics of this, but my point is, at what point is it so beyond over the edge? Because that show, from what I heard, the kids were glorifying it, finding it comical. I don't know if it was a defense mechanism to deal with it, and then the other thing is the utter disrespect for victims and their families, and when some of these shows are kind of being inspired by. So I don't know. So I just have those questions and comments, because at what point is it over the line of glorifying these criminals?
Anybody want to take that? Mojo? Nah, anybody?
So I think the glorification thing comes in different forms, right? With the Luigi thing, we now live in an age where it wasn't necessarily the media that did it. As soon as people saw the photos, they were like, oh, he's attractive. And then there was people that said that, well, because
because these big healthcare companies are so diabolical that somehow the death penalty self-inflicted by a vigilante was a good thing, which then leads into the idea of like, if we're talking about vigilantism, typically most people agree, yeah, that's probably a bad idea, but that doesn't stop us from getting cathartic joy from watching a film like Death Wish, right? There's something that we're wired with where once we agree that something is bad, then we can cross our own boundaries. We become huge hypocrites about just the idea of justice, right? I mean, like clearly Charles Bronson's character in Death Wish was operating outside the law and should be punished, but because we watch him shooting and taking the life of people that are criminals, we watch that, and I'm telling you, go watch Death Wish with people that have never seen it, and just turn it on and watch the reaction. Just watch them. Don't watch the film. Watch the reaction of people watching somebody murder these people. And there's something very interesting about how people find that cathartic. And there's some people that go even further and say that they approve of vigilante justice. And so I think ultimately all of this ties back to we all have a shared thought that the system is rigged, that we can't trust the people in power, and anytime somebody's fighting against those systems, we think, man, good for them. Even if we're not courageous enough to say it out loud, there's a small part of us that thinks that they're doing good work.
Well, Mojo, let me ask you a question before I let us on your JP. Double, I got you. But I never want to on your JP and Blake. JP never comes to my stage, so I hope he hangs out. But Mojo, the question I have for you is, do you think Americans have normalized or have been desensitized to the violence that's around us?
No, I think people, grab onto ideas. They'll say, oh, the video games have desensitized us. They're playing these shooter games, or they're watching violent movies. I put this earlier in chat, and this is true. In Japan, they don't have violence like the way that we do, and in Japan, the movies that they put out are far more violent, like a factor of 10 more violent than the films that we put out. Our most violent films don't touch their shit. In fact, when their most violent films come over here, when they come over here, we don't even give them an R rating because we will give it an NC-17 or we'll give it something that's off the scale. And so there is zero evidence, and I mean zero evidence, to say that fictional violence leads to real world violence. There might be people with mental illnesses that act upon weird impulses. Like you guys remember when the kid was arrested for arson, and when they asked him why he set the fire, he said that he was watching Beavis and Butthead when Beavis was I don't know if it was Beavis or Butthead, the one that used to say fire, fire, and he was emulating that. I don't think that. I think that people that don't have a fully formed brain or have a disability mentally, you can't then blame that on the product. The healthy people in this society understand what's fictional, and I think that Japan is a great use case of understanding that violent film does not translate into violence.
Thank you, Mojo. Sonia, how you doing, Sonia?
I'm good, but I fucking hate talking after Roger.
You want me to come back to you? I'm going to change it first.
Because he says all the stuff that, I mean, a lot of the points I wanted to make, he already made both times. I don't know. I mean, I could add a few things. I think it has to do with, we want to see rich people or successful people go down. So that's a lot of it. Like when it is a high-profile case like Diddy or Menendez brothers or, any of these people, it's like, there's this mob mentality. They're like, yes, yeah, bring them down. Then, so that's one of them. If they are attractive, if the criminals are attractive, that's another one. It becomes very sensationalized. And the last thing is because of social media and how it's raised our, next generations, how no one really wants to work hard at anything anymore. They just want, think there's that element of it too. Like, wow, look, they're doing it. It's just this mentality
So,
that
can I ask you a question?
yeah.
Because I agree with everything you say, but do you think there should be guardrails on social media, TikTok, Facebook?
I don't know how they need to go about doing that, quite honestly. I mean, that's a brand. As a parent, I know it's fucking hard to do that, but I mean, there's always some sort of influence, and it does boil down to, you know, your mental health, and your base mental health, and you're going to be influenced by things if you aren't true in your values and who you are as a person. You're going to be influenced. So I think that I don't know how you could control the social media that much. And then, of course, if you control things, it becomes more desirable. Then people will do things to try to get it even more. So I don't know. Roger really did say the point I wanted to make, but those are my additional little parts to it.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. JP, man, what I owe the honor to, you always say in the audience, how you doing?
Sorry, my mouth is full.
Okay, you want me to come back to you? I'll come back to you. Blake, what's up, Blake? Blake, you there?
Good evening, JP. How you doing, man?
I'm good. So let me ask you a question. Why
That's not like that, Blackie.
Sorry, Anthony?
Nothing. It's a joke. Blackie.
Oh, Blackie, I get it. Why America's fascinated with crime and criminals?
You want to go to war, Anthony?
Not with you, brother. Not with you, brother. I hope all is well, my guy. I hope all is well.
Yeah, I've been here for a long time, man. JP, always good to hear from you, man. It's something about your voice, man, ever since I came to Clubhouse that made me think of, like, coffee and bagels on a really, like,
I love it.
Like the way I imagine New York used to be, like the way I imagine, like I lost interest. I had a love affair as a child, a young man with New York City, the idea of the architecture, the food, the music. Like I always thought of like jazz music in the taxi cab and shit. Like that was my romanticization of New York City until the towers fell. And then second, when I went to Manhattan, we spent an hour there and just got back on the train, back to train New Jersey. Just couldn't do it.
Dude, I second that, man. I hate Manhattan. You couldn't give me a bag of cash to live there.
Oh, it's crazy, man. You know, it's nothing like I thought it would be, but it's still a beautiful city, you know. But anyhow, I think that your question is do I think Americans are fascinated with violence?
No, why are Americans fascinated with crime and criminals? Like the P. Diddy trial, the Luigi, you know, shit like that, and people eat it up. On this app, there must have been 100 rooms at a time just talking about Diddy. 50% for him, 50% against him.
You know what it is? You know, one theory I got is that I feel that we all get an opportunity to project our words-based nature, living vicariously through people who have enough evil in them and also have enough balls in them to do the things that we want to do. Like at the stop sign when some bitch cuts you off and you're just like, man, I could have just followed them and just like do some shit. But then you turn on the news and you find that somebody actually fucking did it. Like you turn on the news, you find that somebody actually followed somebody home because of a road rage incident and blew them the fucking way. You know, we all like, it's not saying that we want to do it, but somewhere in us that rage, you can accidentally do that. That's why they have charges like second and third degree murder, because you didn't walk out the door just today to say, hey, I'm going to get you 5 stars in GTA, like in real life. That's why games like Grand Theft Auto was so cathartic for a lot of young men like myself in the early 2000s. The day we played GTA 3, when it was 380 and we were all fucking in high school, in the moment we walked around in that fake New York City, stimulated New York City, after the Twin Towers fell, and
young men
So
follow a lot of that.
But let me ask you a question real quick. So I'm trying to get a little clarity. And I'm trying to stir the pot a little bit at the same time. Are you saying that video games had something to do with the rise of crime in America?
No. I'm saying that video games have been the answer to the inside nature of a lot of us in America. Caged gerbils. Because we talk about crime is on the rise. Yeah, crime is on the rise. It's spiking, but at the same time, still with the worst crime we've dealt with in America, we're nowhere near as violent as we've come as people all together. Like, you want to talk 1800s, way more violent. You want to talk fucking...
Wait, hold on. Wait, why did you go back to the 1800s? The most violent period of time was 1990 to 1993. If you're talking, unless you're talking about the Civil War, if you want to include that as violence, but outside of that, outside of that, it's 90 to 93, and then what happened in 94? People complain about that too. But I 100% agree with you, and I'm glad you're saying this. Is that video game violence allows people to have that cathartic release. And so I agree with you. I think the more that people play violent video games, the less likely. And you know what? Maybe I'll just put maybe I'll fund a study so we can get some evidence around that.
Yeah. Hold on, Randy. Hold on, Randy. I want Blake to land his plane, and I have to say hello to Abby.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Hey, something
I'll try to be concise. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Roger. And I think you're half right, but I think it's sort of like there's a kind of a low pressure. If you're familiar with anything with HVAC, there's a low pressure and high pressure, and you can gauge that through a manifold to see, and it's a balance act. So I think they're getting exposed to too much simulated sex, too much simulated violence can also go the other way, where you will be desensitized to it, where we see these acts play out in some of our worst atrocities, like the school shootings and stuff. Not to blame the game on the shootings, but blame or connect the correlation of like ideas, because the human imagination is a motherfucker, and you know that. You know, how do we come up with torture? You think like, who the fuck came up with that shit? You know what I'm saying? Like, somebody had to think how lethal injection would work, or how a hollow point bullet would do ballistic damage. So like, people have to think of this shit, and the human imagination funneled in the wrong way. You know, you get weird ass kids thinking it's cool to just do the shit they do sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
Blake. Appreciate you, bro.
I think they're just bored. Honestly, I think it's idle hands. I think we go around closing down all the facilities, putting regulations on them that make it hard for them to make profits. And then when I was a kid, my town wasn't even a big town. We had multiple bowling alleys, multiple movie theaters, multiple arcades. We had roller skate. We had it all. We had it fucking all. And then we had our bicycles we could ride. Now it's like, oh, you got to put on your fucking helmet, and you got to do this, and you got to do that. The kids don't even play outside anymore. I mean, honestly, I think when you start realizing that idle time is the way that people find ways to fill it with breaking the law. Oakland, California used to have a great program called Midnight Basketball. And Midnight Basketball took these kids that were up to no good, and at that time were sneaking out of the house, they had poor supervision, and they were going to be on the streets regardless. And it said, hey, here's a place where you can go. And a lot of the people that were at the Midnight Basketball, they were people that worked at the schools, they were off-duty police officers. There were people that cared about giving these kids a place to play, a place where they could have these outlets. Were there fights at Midnight Basketball? Sure. But if you take the people that were running the streets at midnight and you put them in a gymnasium and hand them a basketball and you let them pick teams, that is far better, far more constructive. And what we do is we disallow that because you got some Karen that comes along that says, well, if they're up all night playing basketball, how are they going to wake up in time for school? And they're missing the big picture is that those kids weren't waking up for school anyways. What you were doing was giving them an ability to get together and do something good.
Thank you, Mojo. So I want to welcome. Well, Blake, hold on a second. We're going to go Abby, JP, Anthony, and then Dr. Mitch.
Hey.
How you doing, Council? Hey,
good.
Council, I saw in your city like 10 people got shot and 3 people got murdered last night.
Yeah, did you see that?
Fucking
you see
crazy.
the video of that?
No, I didn't see the video yet, but I just want to say I want to publicly apologize for being rude to you like 2 weeks ago. I love you. I think you're amazing. You're always welcome in my state.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was very sweet. I have a lot to say about it because, first of all, I put this in the chat. I somewhat blame the media for, it's viewership and it's what sells. So they figured out the human nature side of curiosity and wanting to know the dark side and problem solving, like puzzle solving that people have. And the media exploits it, whether it's digital or, TV. But I live in a city that's got a mob museum. We have a whole museum committed to the mafia. And it's not just even the mafia, it's like about crime. So it has a lot, it's not that it's lauding these mafiosos, but it's definitely a long history and people are just enamored by it.
Well, Abby, let's have this dialogue because we spoke about this earlier. Why has the Italian mob been so romanticized in the media, movies, and all that? Just specifically the Italian mob.
That's an interesting question because, in the mob museum, it's not just the Italian mob. So I have to tell you that. The mob museum is also a lot of the Jewish mob and the Irish mob. And there's a little bit on the African American, but not much, and more modern stuff on the Russian mobs that are here. But definitely, it shows different ethnic groups. But leaving the mob museum and just what's in film and TV, it's definitely was a stereotype that was put on the Italian community early on. There's reasons that people give that have to do with what got imported early on in organized crime and who was involved in it. But I think that if you look at it, and the Boardwalk Empire was about an Irish empire, pretty much, and you have so much with Godfather and Goodfellas and films like that and TV series that really push more on the Italian. But I think it was shared. Organized crime, crossed over different ethnicities. But again, just to tell you, generally, I think there's an obsession with it because people are curious. Also, it's almost like a thrill to be able to not be in danger but see danger the same way someone goes on a roller coaster or such. They can live vicariously through watching how crime dramas play out. It appeals psychologically to people to have it so blasted around them and to be consumed with it. So I think on that level, plus, as I said, I think the media figured that out, and it sells. It gets viewers. So
Abby, let me just ask Abby a real quick question based on what you just said. Would you agree that the media, to your point, the media has figured out that audiences like to explore the psychology of evil, and a lot of these shows and documentaries highlight that. There's so much intrigue around the psychology of evil and what makes criminals tick. I see Sage is giving me the thumbs down. You don't think audiences like to explore the psychology of...
Totally. Again, that's why we have a mob museum. And 100% I agree with you. I think that, that people, it's a sense of empowerment to know about it. Also, some people want to know how to protect themselves from criminals. So it opens the door to learn about criminal behavior.
Abby, let me jump in for a second. I agree with one thing you said. It's a fascination. On this app, and sometimes in real life, but I've been home for a while, but definitely on this app, I get more questions about crime in the criminal underworld than any other thing. We could be talking about Trump, reparations, don't matter. People will be asking me questions because they are fascinated. But I don't think they do it to keep safe. I used to run rooms on this app to keep people safe. And the truth is, most people don't give a fudge. They just don't. If it don't hit them at home, they don't care. So that I just wanted to say that. But
Wait.
yeah.
Question for you.
Okay.
You don't think some of these shows that we've seen, some of these documentaries or true life crime shows, can serve as cautionary tales, especially for young women or people young folks, or just how to navigate the world, how to spot red flags in dating, love life, professional life? There's so many TV shows. I mean, Lifetime has built an entire network out of producing content that serves as cautionary tales for women, especially. So you don't think the crime stories and the criminals, oftentimes, especially when the media latches on to these some of the more high profile stories and turn them into television shows and movies, that oftentimes they can serve as cautionary tales and education?
Well, I think, and it's a great question, but what I think is just my opinion. Not just women, people in general. I think a certain segment takes it seriously and takes precautions. I think a certain segment watches it and loses interest after 2 hours of watching it. Because they gotta go with their kids, their job, their spouse, whatever it may be. So I don't know if they use it as a cautionary tale, but I do think that there's not enough, how do I put it, learning about what to look for. I ran rooms on here on how to spot the con men and con women. And you know what? I got chased all over the South, but the people that chased me were the con men. I'm sorry, Abigail.
One of the other things, though, is that the media is so powerful in this that they can really be the driving force of teaching the public what's a crime and who's a criminal. And they can influence public opinion on what constitutes a crime, what criminals are like, how the justice system operates. I mean, I watch some of these lawyer shows, and I like jumping at the TV because like not everything always happens that way. And I think that the media, whether they do it as a documentary or they just do it, in different TV series. I mean, so many people know about special victims units from watching Law and Order.
But Abby, let me push back on that.
But I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying I think that there's a lot of manipulation.
100%.
How the public views a criminal or what is a crime is not necessarily what is a criminal and how that crime occurred. Like there's so much more to it, but the media can dictate that.
Listen, Abby, and I love that, and I agree with you. I'm gonna name a show that everybody's familiar with, but they may not be familiar. And I thought it was a great show, to be honest with you. It's a needed show. The Catch a Predator with Chris Hansen. Great show. Here's the problem. I think 95% of the people on that show, their arrests got tossed. Right? They didn't do it the right way. They were manipulating the system. So, I mean, listen, I always thought one of the best shows, crime shows that really help people was America's Most Wanted. It was very well done. It was very spoken and it taught people what to look for. But, and let me say hello to JP. He's been patiently waiting. JP, you there?
Yeah, thank you.
What do I owe this honor? You actually came to my state.
Raise my hand and Mojo let me out.
Got you, Mike, sure.
So I'm not in the States, but I'm old enough to have had an original Pong for my first video game. And there was some, and I'm not that old. I'm only 55. But I was raised in a big way by video games. And I agree with Roger in that there are studies after studies proving this, that only the pathological predisposed mind really holds to the lure of playing out in their real life, the fantasies that are played in
American families that play video games with them. But it really didn't catch on in my country for another 15 years. And so for a very big chunk of my adolescence, I was a lone player, and I was about the first or couple of 5 people that had CompuServe when that was a thing before the internet. So that's the way we would play. But
JB, you like the Vikings.
Hold on real quick. The people in the audience that are being impatient with JP because he's walking people through this, let me just explain this. Everyone that's on this stage, JP's English is far better than your Spanish, so you guys can be a little bit more patient, let JP land his fucking plane. And by the way, what he's saying is far more intelligent than most of the shit that I hear on these stages. So let's let JP land his fucking plane, and then I'd like to see the next English speaker try to do theirs in Spanish.
JP, Uncle Caleb, I got you and wanted to know JP. JP.
I thought I was having a JP.
No, Uncle Caleb.
My American friends started getting better grades because video games teach you stuff. They make you solve problems. It's a great exercise for the mind, and none of them were violent ever or think of being violent. So that's about it.
Thank you, JP. So, Anthony, I promise you to go after Uncle Caleb, they'll go to Capitals. But I remember a time, Sage, I got you, bro. But English speakers at first. I remember a time when typical, I don't know, maybe I'm dating myself. Typical started this movement where they wanted to
PMRC, sorry, go.
It's fine. Yeah, typical. Look how that turned out. Uncle Caleb, how you doing? Thank you for your patience.
Hey, I'm good, JP. How everybody doing in the room?
Doing fantastic.
I'll be brief. The title of the room, why are Americans fascinated with crime? Well, I mean, this country, in my perception, was developed on crime, with violence. If you look at the black Americans, what they went through in this country through violence. America, if you understand how the mindset works in the psyche, develops certain aspects of your reality, and you wind up being that what you have in your brain, because your brain actually creates your reality. So if I'm bombarded with crime, whether it's GTA as a kid, growing up, or going to the army, or out here in these streets with a gun, or whatever the case may be, I was born into this crime mindset. And by me being born into this crime mindset, I'm stuck in a world that I can't get out of because the only thing I know is crime. So when it really comes down to understanding the mechanisms of the brains and understanding how it soaks in information, and that information turns that into a reality, and that reality turns into your physical form of what you see. These are the things that we as human beings have to work on to understand how we've been manipulated to be criminals from a kid on up. I lay my plane.
And I want to respond really quickly. JB is a classic example of somebody who broke out of that. If you've listened to his story, he grew up around crime. In his adult life, he practiced crime. He went to prison, and now he's out of crime. So he's a classic example of how someone, if they want to, can get out of it.
Thank you, Steve. I got out of it, really, because prison taught me about collateral damage I was doing to people around me, my children especially. And I've been working hard the last 11 years to show them that, I'm a different man now. And I'm grateful that they give me the opportunity to do so. But I think there's systems in place that a lot of people can't overcome to keep them criminals. I'm not justifying criminality, I'm just saying that's the real right there. But let's go to Anthony. I would just been patient.
What's real?
Anthony.
Yes, thank you for your patience to every speaker. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, so the reason why people are fascinated with
to, the Italian mafia and, like crime stuff in general, the way it's depicted in media. There was a point in when masculinity was celebrated, and those guys came across as masculine men, and they had a code. They had some kind of like they had their own rules that they lived by. So that was also extremely interesting. So and there's something to be said to doing it your way, like being an outlaw and blazing your own path as opposed to conforming to make it. So for all of these reasons, I think, crime and criminals are, perceived to be interesting. Lastly, as it relates specifically to like the Luigi and the Puffy, there's an element with those guys of like a fall from grace, like Luigi, stellar background, super accomplished, and how does he end up, where he ended up at? Puffy, he got it out the mud, made it happen, and the classic American story of fall from grace, and so there's Puffy and a celebrity, and to like it's sort of like that cautionary tale BS, but it all makes sense, man. Ultimately, like I said, the bad guy is way more interesting than the protagonist.
Well, I'll say this, Anthony, about as far as Luigi's concerned. I think there's a certain segment of society that agrees with whatever message, as diluted as it was, that he was going to deliver, right? The healthcare system's bad. Take them down one at a time. And people gravitate to that shit. The fact that he's good looking, the fact that he's smart, that he is the anti-hero. People gravitate to that. This is why he gets thousands of letters a week of mail. P. Diddy, I said this before, and people are going to get mad at me. I think P. Diddy just pissed off the wrong white person. And that's why they try to take him down. Jackals, what's good?
Oh, God. Hi. I just gotta be honest, there's literally not another room on Clubhouse I'd rather be in right now. Take that however you want. Sorry. Anyway, why are Americans fascinated with crime and criminals? Well, I think honestly it just has to do with the fact that it's what you can't do. It's what you can't, like, you're not supposed to. I mean, yes, you can do it, but you're really not supposed to, because there are consequences for committing crimes. And I think what it breaks down to it is, like, people like to do things that they're not allowed to do, or they're curious about them. And since you can't do it without repercussions, it's cool to watch a show kind of play it out, or whatever the case may be, or just a true crime thing. So that's kind of my thought. I don't know. Curious to know what you guys think about that, though.
Cackles, people are making fun of your cackle, and I don't think they've been fully exposed to you. So thanks for coming by and giving them a little glimpse of who you are. I just wanted to jump in with the fact that Martin Scorsese, who's made some of the most iconic gangster films of all time, he tried sitting down and watching The Sopranos, and he turned it off after one episode. He said that he couldn't watch it because, and this is a guy that loves telling those stories. He grew up around it. He loves telling those stories. He said the thing that he saw in Sopranos, which was inaccurate in any of these settings, was the disrespect that they showed towards women when they would cuss in front of them. And it was his experience that these men that would rob or steal or commit other crimes, they did have a code, and they were respectful around women and children. And so it's very interesting that Martin Scorsese
lives so much by that code that he didn't even want to watch the entertainment value of Sopranos because he thought that they were portraying these inaccuracies. And again, even though he could portray the brutal, violent side of these guys in his film, he believes that it's necessary to tell about how they feel about their family. And I think The Godfather is a great example of, in many cases, in many ways, The Godfather is just as much a story about family as it is a story about the mafia. And so I think there's things about the mafia, because these contradictions of like being a loving father and a loving husband and caring for the people in your circle, that people look at that and they're like, oh, that's a stand-up guy. But then there's this weird bifurcation where outside their home, they could be murderers. And I think that's something that's worth exploring, because we have people that would never think of murdering somebody, but they can't talk to women and children with respect, and they don't protect them the way that people would in that lifestyle. And so I think that's a weird contradiction that when people watch it, they feel it, right? They feel like, wow, this part of this guy is a good guy, and then part of him's a bad guy, and then you have to wrestle through what do you feel about that? And I think some people err on the side of overlooking the murder because the person protected their family, and I don't know. I think it's very interesting. But Scorsese's take on The Sopranos has made it different for me to watch Sopranos again. Now watching it and realizing that, like, oh shit, that probably wouldn't go down like that.
Well, let me jump in here real quick, because I know other people want to jump in. I gotta get to Sage in a minute, but like I said, my lived experience when I was on the streets, I ran with some of these guys, right? Some of them had codes, right? And you knew right away who had the codes, like who respected each other, who respected their families. And some of those guys, the younger generation, bro, they couldn't care less. It was all about the money. They would say they followed the code, but they didn't. And you know what? The American mob right now, the mob will always be around, but it's definitely not as powerful as it used to be. Because this generation has become rats. But let me say hello to Dr. Jordan, the driver.
He's a rat.
Not much. I had a fascinating conversation with some influencers today, social media influencers, and it's just fascinating. I was thinking of it because one of them's Italian, and I think you're right about these younger generations, but there were definitely other, like, for example, Sonny Francis would not rat on anybody, and he died in prison. He was in prison for 40 years. No, he didn't die in prison, he got out. But people did live by a code. And the question, I think, is...
I was like, the George just cracks me up. I find myself laughing all the time at Dr. George.
Live a double life, that's often the case, versus the sociopaths who are a little more neurotic and wouldn't be able to pull that off. Not to say that every mobster is a psychopath for sure, but there's an element of that,
Well, wait, hold on, Jordan. And I'm asking you this question respectfully, because I actually like the guy. What would you classify Ori Spado?
I mean, Ori's not like a hardened criminal. He's charming.
When John Gotti wants somebody in the
ground, John Gotti calls between right and wrong. He's not going to go out of his way.
You bet.
In fact,
just fucking sitting on my flags and my name never stepped away my name.
The fact that he's not a made man.
You're a selfish prick.
Speaks to, I guess, his integrity and
He
didn't want to be forced to do anything he didn't really believe in.
It's not yours. With all your $2,000 suits and all your front page Dapper Don shit.
Thank you, Dr. Jordan.
Your lawyer didn't even know how to
Sage, you want me to jump in?
John, you beat the government. You're supposed to walk away humble. You're not supposed to stand up in front of TV cameras crawling about. Because it's gonna come back in your face.
Mobsters, mob bosses, rather. I mean,
I'm not trying to make a political point here, but we have a sitting president that is a criminal or convicted criminal, right? So it goes back to my main point, which is this strand of like anti-establishment, which is built in within the psyche, the spirit, the geist, right? This resentment that Americans have towards the establishment, right? I think that's the main thing. But also, I don't want to say like the world is not black and white. There's a lot of gray areas. Like, for example, I don't know if you know the guy JD, like Michael Francesi, I think his name is the guy who's a mobster.
I'm very familiar with Michael Francesi.
You see, like, we also like a redemption story, like this guy, Christian, right? He reformed his life. So I'm not saying like there is definitely that strand of anti-establishment. And I want to make a point also, like, I think the reason we hate, and also I'm not trying to make a political statement, but I think the main reason we hate communism is because we don't like big government. Like, that's the thing. And this is what, like, for example, Trump, when he got elected, he represents this anti-establishment. He's something new, something that is against the old establishment. He's coming from somewhere that is.
Well, let's say just things. Let me ask you a question. Do you at this age consider Donald Trump a criminal?
Yeah, I mean, he was convicted, but that's not gonna make me, view him as a bad or good person based on how he runs the country. But that's that's not the point that I'm making. The point is that I think this there's an interesting video. I don't know if it's still on YouTube, where Trump is sitting with, he's being interviewed by the Kawasaki. I don't know the guy, the rich dad, poor dad, what is it? Poor dad, rich dad guy, you know, the guy who wrote a book with him. And in that interview, Trump, he looks over at New York and he's pointing at the downtown to Manhattan, whatever. Look and say, look, this is where the power is. And we managed to get here. So, you know, like, he's someone who's
But let me ask you a follow-up question. Are you ready? Here's my follow-up question. Let's just play a little game. Let's say the state of New York changed the law just to get him. Would you still consider him convicted?
It's not. It doesn't matter if he was wrongly convicted. I'm saying, like, the support for him, like, this anti-establishment. You can say, like, for example, well, someone like even Bernie Sanders, who's, you know, saying he's a criminal. This populism, it comes from an anti-establishment. This thing, this strand, this energy, is something that you know, the cowboy represents the old Western, the Sergio Leone, the spaghetti westerns that we see. What's the guy called? What's his name now?
Clint Eastwood.
No, Harry was supposed to go.
Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, Clint Eastwood. Right. I think this is what makes America kind of anti-big government. And this is why we kill all these characters. And also, like, Tony Soprano is bad. There has to be also a redeeming family dynamics also.
Thank you so much. So, Rod, you asked the question. Abby, you know the story of the Fitzgerald Laguna? What is the Fitzgerald Ranch?
Irish gangster who had a falling out for police in Las Vegas. Started his own casino. And legend has it, the suite that he had on the hotel was essentially trying to save for and he never left. But I'd love to hear what happened.
They had a property in Vegas also, Fitzgerald's, right? That, I mean, there's some people think on. I was putting stuff in the chat about like,
I haven't
charge of it. So the gaming commissions in different states are very strict upon like your background. Even the dealers at the table have to go through some pretty extensive backgrounds in order to work in a casino environment. But what they've allowed for, and this happens a lot in like native casinos, is that you have these Asian gangsters that they call themselves the corporation, and they will come to like, let's say, a pie gow table where you basically can rotate the bank, but if you don't have enough money to cover everybody, nobody will play. And so the corporation's the only person at that table in those games where you're not playing against the house, you're actually playing player versus player. And so what happens is these Asian gangsters, they pull their money together to become the corporation. Those games are fucking dirty, super dirty. And I think the one thing, despite the fact that the mob was the one that built it, I think they built these casinos because they liked the fact that it was harder to tax, right? Money that comes in that way. Because who's there to really count the coins that went into a slot machine, right? This is why they were into pay phones. This is why they were into vending machines. Anything that was difficult to tax. But there's just like a pen would protect. Like if you drove into a hooker part of town, the pimps would protect you. If you were there for prostitution, you were in the safest part of town because nobody's going to allow you to get harmed because they don't want the word to get out that it's dangerous to do that. And I think that the mob, when they ran the casinos, they understood that we have to be more hospitable. We have to be provide an environment that's fun, that's safe, that's exciting. And I think when you corporatized it, what has happened is it's become a bigger scam where the machines are tighter, everything's down to like and Abby can vouch for this. She knows this exactly what I'm saying. If you walked into a casino and you talked to the right people, I could ask them, hey, how much money per square foot does a restaurant do? They'd give me an exact number to the penny per square foot. If I said table games, they could give me an exact dollar amount per square foot. And they're always looking to raise the dollar they can get per square foot, which is why you see poker rooms leaving Las Vegas and other casinos. There's some casinos that you leave it as a loss lead because they know that some people will come and play poker and then their wife will go to the slot machine. That's kind of why some of them will leave it. But overall, these casinos know exactly what they're doing in terms of driving more of their floor space to the things that generate the most revenue. And I think that the thing before was just, let's create an environment where people can have fun. And of course, they were skimming off the top, but now with more regulations, more cameras everywhere, you can't really do that. So the corporations have taken it over, and I don't even like Vegas. I'm somebody that's gambled my entire life, and I think of Las Vegas as I don't have fun there at all.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Vegas either. No smoke out there.
No, it's fine. I'm just telling you. I don't drink and
I don't really gamble, so it's really
but
nice.
80% of the revenue here is hospitality. It's not gaming revenue. But it used to be the opposite of that. When 30 years ago, 25 years ago, it was mostly gaming revenue. But it's interesting because, again, talk to other people like we're the old timers here. They just preferred when it was run that way. And you're absolutely right, Roger. It's bottom line. And it wasn't bottom line under
what I ordered.
So I guess that's a yes. Abby, you gonna stay in AM?
I'm at the airport picking someone up, so I'm gonna jump off too.
Alright.
You're talking Mexican or Tex-Mex?
No, I don't fuck with Tex-Mex. Look, I found one good spot for Mexican food in the Pacific Northwest, so I go there often. I grew up in California where we had the best Mexican food on the planet. Even Mexico couldn't compete with California Mexican.
Well, before I go, Sage, hold on, boy. Sage, I don't know what you're talking about in the chat. You've been showing nothing but respect and grace on the stage. If you have a problem with it quietly, you have to fucking gaslight, dude. Anyway, guys, I gotta go because my granddaughter's waiting for me. You guys are playing now. Who are you? Anyway,
who's this monk? You guys are not saying anything. Like you all like you, not philosophers. Okay, but when I speak, you like let me point. You never let me finish my point.
Maybe it's just a smidge long-winded. Just a smidge.
But this guy's not saying anything, man. He's talking bullshit.
Sage, what is your beef with you? Have a beef with me? What did I say that you disagree with?
No, it's not with you personally, but with this guy, JB. When I'm trying to make a point, he's like letting you point. But he lets you ramble on for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So I can't get my point across. That's the problem.
How about this?
We're not having a debate.
No, well, I don't think we're having a debate. I think we're having a discussion. But why don't we do this? Why don't what we're going to do right now?
It's a simple. Isn't the same thing?
Well, respectfully, it's not. But I wouldn't expect a non-philosopher to understand that.
You're a non-philosopher.
No, you're the non-philosopher. So what I'm going to do is...
You're an insufferable guy. You have nothing to say.
So I asked you if you had a beef with me, and you said you had no beef with me. You're the non-philosopher. So here's what we're gonna do, everyone. We're gonna give the non-philosopher 2 minutes of uninterrupted time. And yes, I am. Yes, I'm gonna give you. As a matter of fact, I can move you down too. I have lots of tools in my toolkit. Yeah. Okay, so I have lots of tools in my toolkit. I'll bring you back up. What I'd love to do is I'd love to give that guy 2 minutes of uninterrupted time to say the most intelligent thing that comes to his mind. I'd like for him to come up and just tell us all about how philosophical he can be. Let's see if we can bring him back up, and he's just going to wow us with his intellect. I would love for you guys to do audience participation when he's making his points. Just give him the emoji that you think he deserves. We're going to bring him back up. Let's see. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Oh, he left. I brought him up, and I think he left. I moved him down.
Yeah, I moved him down. I think he's going to come out.
I didn't move him down.
I moved him down. I moved him down when he interrupted me. Did he leave? Oh, he didn't want the spotlight. I thought he wanted the spotlight. But look, sometimes people can't handle the spotlight. Like what he wanted to do is he wanted to make snide comments, but if you offer somebody 2 minutes of uninterrupted time, they don't want it because they realize they don't have anything to say. I can't believe his point was that JB, we just babble and we're non-philosophers. So he is a philosopher king, apparently. So next time you guys see that guy around, just tell him to share his wisdom.
He's coming up.
Oh, okay. We're going to give him 2 minutes uninterrupted, but I just want to instruct the audience. Just make sure you use the emoji that best describes your feelings towards what our philosopher king Sage has to say. Say.
I didn't even understand what you just said, dude. Say it again. Why are you gay? Oh, why is he gay?
Oh, this is Edmund. Okay. Hey, well done, Edmund. Well done. That was Edmund. Everybody that likes to block Edmund, go ahead and block that profile. That was Edmund. There was your philosopher.
You should have responded to the block.
Alrighty then. We have Waxy on stage. I'm bouncing. Close the door when you guys leave, please. Thank you.
I think we should do an experiment. I think we should bring Sage up, mod him, and then the rest of us leave. I think that would be interesting. And then we'll come back 30 minutes from now and see what's happening. I think that might be fun. Sage, go ahead. Come on. Oh, you're gone again. When you grant them their wish, they don't know what to do with it. He said that he was a philosopher king, and then, hey, you got 2 minutes to give us your best stuff. And he says, why are you gay? Anyways, that's probably somebody's friend in here. Some of you guys like it. Come here. Yeah, whatever. I'm gonna go eat. You guys can have at it. Bye.
Yeah, guys, this was JP's room. This topic, I'm gonna go ahead and close it down. Because it's 10 p.m. my time, and I would rather just listen than lead. Enjoy a glass of wine, you know how that goes. So until next time, beautiful people, thank you to everyone on stage. Everyone joining Space Day. See you tomorrow, probably on.
Am I able to speak now? Okay, so what I was saying happened in Texas on July 4th wasn't just.
That you guys can use as well. You guys need.
Okay, Chucky, are you ready to practice your hello? Are you good to go? You want to go to Sunday?
I don't know what's in Adam's counselor, and we can look the secrets.
I don't like this this thing. It's so creepy. There's 3 of them now, right? 2, 3.
It's
That's
good.
okay. It's too creepy. Gary, you still there?
I don't know if you saw that, but that was not me trolling and pranking process. But it kind of sounds like me in terms of like last week bullshit. Alright, we're gonna go back to
So that's good. These anonymous, no conflict relevant.
Yeah, let's see how this officially
The wealthy elite get richer from the fallout. It's not just neglect, it's affordable. Let people die, clear the land, rebuild for the rich. And when you try to call it out, you call me crazy and mute my mic. I'm just saying.
Yeah, of course that's the case, and you can trace all the transactions, so it's not that hard to do.
Actually, Scotty she makes a really good point about Hawaii. I guess the state of Hawaii doesn't care about their people.
So let me know when I can say cigarettes and Times Square sharks.
Huge fire burning through and killing tons of people.
In the underground bunkers?
Hawaii. He was saying that the Texas government doesn't care about the people.
They have, you know what, to be honest with you, I think
There's historical investments when it comes to like versus California, right?
So let me know when I can say something. It's a Times Square shark. If you guys want.
Let Times Square start go.
Okay, one.
Let Times Square start go real quick, and then I'll go ahead and give you a brief on it because California actually does have a robust system versus.
right here, Aurora, letting the other guy speak. Where the person live?
He's right there. They keep throwing him down.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, of course. Wow, that's kind of amazing.
Just speak.
Yeah, okay. So basically, there's one truth and multiple, lies about the truth, right? And so Hawaii, yes, that was direct energy weapons were used against Hawaii, and that's pretty clear for the smart cities, as they were used in Pacific Palisades and Malibu. This flooding thing actually, well, who knows what's behind it, but also it's something that is just too high of a variance. It's like a once in 1,000 year flood, and I think there is some more behind it. I think the latest thing I saw is that people there were maybe military people, and maybe it was a cabal message to say that
said that they just don't care about people, so you're starting a secret cabal, you know, they're trying to kill.
Look at the school shootings that happen. They don't give a shit about gun violence in America, so they don't do shit. So
Do you really, Scott, you want to go to gun? Do you really want to go to school shooting?
So,
yes, I do.
Okay, so I looked it up, and they were talking about local funding when it comes to Texas counties, particularly. They said there's been repeated deprioritized warning systems, citing high costs and failed grants. With California overall, they've employed advanced systems, and this is something that's been recommended to Texas. It's a community hydraulic prediction system, advanced quantitative precipitation information radar-based forecasting system, and an atmospheric river program where they study and anticipate intense rain events. The problem with Texas, let me go down this. Y'all rely on automated alerts, sirens, push notifications, and NOA. Whereas California, that's all y'all rely on right now.
Jackson, hold on, please. Wait. Tasha, she's reading something, please. Oh, I'm sorry.
Where not only does California have river gauges, real-time radar, rainfall tracking, countywide monitoring center, they also have their own California alert system, California Department of Water Resources Forecast Operations Center. So yeah, there's a lot of things that's been recommended for y'all state that hasn't been funded at all. So, government's right. Maybe they don't give a fuck. It's not a priority.
Like, they haven't fixed, this is a great, the legislature haven't even fixed our electricity, like, issue within Texas with their building board. And no, since the time we had no electricity and everybody had an issue and people died, they still haven't fixed the issue with our grids in Texas. So what he is saying, it does make sense, but they are building more and people are moving to Texas in large numbers. But we still have an issue with our grid system that has yet to be fixed. And they've been complaining about this grid system for years. So it is one of those things where it's like, in Texas, do you care more about the people or about the amount of money it's going to cost to fix the thing because people don't want to spend the money to fix it? And we've been saying this as people in Texas for months, and